Pancha Nivarani. Pancha Nivarani. The 5 Nivarana, or the 5 hindrances. In the Buddha Dhamma, so in the Buddha's teachings, and actually in your practice and in life and in reality, in the experience of life, whether you're a Buddhist or not, all beings, not just humans actually, but we'll stick to humans for now, are under the influence of these 5 hindrances, which you could say we're under the influence of absolutely trillions of biochemical influential factors, but the Buddha explained along the path that there are various obstacles, and one of the obstacles is the 5 hindrances. So the 5 hindrances are not all of the obstacles on the path. The 5 hindrances and the teaching of the 5 hindrances, to overcome the 5 hindrances, is to overcome 5 obstacles, but it's not to overcome all obstacles. It is to overcome one of the major obstacles, which is the 5 obstacles of the 5 hindrances. Yeah? So they're obstacles because they're hindrances. They hinder you. They hold you back. They tie your legs. They chain you down. They are fetters. They're not fetters. That's something else. There are 10 fetters in the Buddhist teachings. So this is 5 hindrances, not fetters. But actually, obstacles, fetters, hindrances, they're all things standing in your way or stopping you from advancing. So are they 5 hindrances and 10 fetters, or are there 15 obstacles? Actually, there's an infinite number of obstacles. But the point of the teaching is to categorize them like this helps to explain. If you've understood it through practice, then it's nice to hear as a confirmation of, oh, I really have understood what the Buddha taught, because that's what I saw in my meditation. Right? So what are these 5 hindrances that stop us from advancing? They're mental states, they cloud your mind, and they prevent you from achieving clarity, tranquility, and most definitely prevent us from achieving wisdom. And it gets on my tits. And that's part of the hindrance as well, that it gets on my tits. But these hindrances really are a bother. The first hindrance is sensual desire, or kamatan, or kamachanda. Kamachanda. And this hindrance means the craving for sensory pleasures, or the craving for not experiencing or encountering displeasurable things. That's also craving. So it's not just to crave for things, but it's also to crave for not having the things you don't want, and to crave for the things you do want. So if you think that not wanting something is getting over craving, you're wrong. Because I don't want to see my enemy on the street, because it gives me a bad feeling. I don't want to feel like that. Oh, that person I don't like. And he probably thinks the same. So that is craving to not bump into that person. It's not craving to see them. No, it's craving to not see them. Yeah. So you can crave to see or crave to not see. There is no opposite that is not the opposite of craving. Yeah. That's the negative craving and the positive craving. Yeah. Craving for and craving not for. Yeah. Absence of craving is overcoming both of those, not just the first. So, craving is the first, kamachanda, and it's the mind's tendency to seek out and cling to pleasant experiences, and aversion means repulsion from unpleasant experiences. That's how it's taught, as a dualistic thing. I prefer to unify that and bring some quantum Dhamma, what I call my own additions to that, so it stops being Buddha Dhamma for a moment here. because this is my addition, it's not in the Buddha Dhamma, that I don't particularly, I find that dualistic. I'm not sure what the Buddha would say, because he's not here, but I find that very dualistic, and there's actually only one. Yeah, I'm one of those people who believe that if God created everything, so to speak, then everything is God. Therefore, God and the devil are the same person. It's just the same person wearing two masks. Because if he created everything, then he must have created the devil himself as himself. So everything has two sides. A pendulum swings to, and it swings fro. As far as it goes, swings to the left, it swings so far to the right. Yeah, and if it swings less every time, it swings less to the other side every time as well. It's always balanced out. So craving and not craving, yeah, in this sense, in Buddhism is often explained in teachings written by people, not the Buddha, by unenlightened people, because most teachings are written by people, not the Buddha. In fact, all teachings are written by people, not the Buddha. So you have to always be careful that something gets changed or overlooked by an unenlightened person. And in this case, I think so. That the mind's tendency to seek out and cling to pleasant experiences is what's usually said, but it doesn't mention that the mind also has a tendency to seek out not experiencing things. Yeah? People think that is not seeking something. It's actually seeking to not do it. You're not seeking to do it. You're actually intentionally not doing it. So you're seeking to not do it. You're still seeking. You're still craving. It's just a negative form of craving. So how do you overcome sensual desire? Well, depends what kind of sensual desire. Mindfulness of the body, noticing the impermanence and unsatisfactory nature of sensory pleasures. Reflection on consequences, contemplate the fleeting nature of pleasure and the suffering that can result from attachment to it when it's gone. Yeah? Which means you have to go back, you get addicted to it, you have to go back and look for it again because it's temporary pleasure, so you have to repeat it. Yeah? So cultivation of contentment is definitely recommendable, that you try to cultivate and develop a sense of contentment with what you have, not what you don't have, and focus on the joy that comes from simplicity and restraint. Restraint meaning, that's wisdom. It's very hard to restrain yourself from doing something you want to do, but you know, or not doing something because you're too lazy to do it. In my case, it would be so. Everybody's different, you know? To go downstairs and go wash the car, you know? You might think about it for 3 hours not wanting to do it. So it's a craving to not do something, yeah? It's a craving that I wish I could just do this instead of that. You know? And just to be content with what you're doing is just say, oh, it's good for me. I can listen to music and wash the car, like you see happy families on Sundays in the 1950s movies. Sundays when you mow the lawn and wash the car, I listen to the radio. Yeah, okay. Could make an enjoyable thing out of it instead of it being something I don't want to do. And to look around me and see what I have and see it's more than what some others have and be content with that and stuff like that. Yeah. So the second is ill will, payapada, payapada, it says in English. I have a list in front of me, which doesn't make sense because I learned Thai. So I'm going to say the Thai word payabad, which means harmful intention and thoughts. Yeah? And this hindrance is essentially characterized by feelings of anger, hatred, or resentment, or aversion. This is kind of clinging, though, resentment. but ill will, so intention, to want to dislike somebody, but actually it means to want to harm others. A desire, has to be a desire, an intention, or to wish ill towards others. So, as I begin to continue this recording after a short pause, before I explain the third hindrance, I'd like to say and remind everybody that the hindrances are not just obstacles in life and in achieving happiness, but they're in achieving enlightenment. Before you achieve enlightenment, you have to achieve the jhanas, or the dhyana, the stages of concentration or absorption within your meditation practice, yeah? And that these 5 hindrances, the 2 I've explained and the 3 yet to come, they're identified as obstacles. So that's why they're called hindrances to meditation, yeah? Because that's how you're going to get to enlightenment. Yeah. So the third hindrance is sloth and torpor, yeah, which in Sanskrit is known as tinamita, yeah, which means half-hearted action with little or no effort or concentration. So lack of laziness, lack of motivation, basically. And it can also be a state which I myself know that many people know, of people who get PTSD or depression, or sometimes they just have phases where as soon as you think about that thing that usually inspires you, you think to get up and do it, all of a sudden you feel tired and you want to go to sleep. It's sloth and torpor, and it's a hindrance stopping you from achieving the thing you're trying to do. Yeah. So that's a very, very hard hindrance to overcome. And as I said, it's called tinamita in Sanskrit, yeah? Which mita, I think is the proper pronunciation, yeah? Is a Buddhist term translated as torpor in English, or drowsiness, better said. Yeah? You're feeling kind of tired, lazy and tired, you don't feel like doing anything, no motivation, yeah? It's different in Theravada and Mahayana, it differs slightly, but in Theravada and Theravada in general, the mita is definitely looked at more of kind of like a grey, morbid state. Lack of energy, lack of motivation, and even in the worst cases, an opposition to wholesome activity. So something that's good for you, you'll refuse to do it, yeah? You refuse. That it might actually be good for you to get you out of your hole, or out of your rut, or out of your depression, or your bad mood, or whatever, yeah? Or get you out of your laziness, yeah? Which is the hindrance we're talking about. And that the mind draws inwards, yeah? The mita factor of sloth and torpor causes your mind to draw inwards and loses discrimination between what's wholesome and what's unwholesome, what's auspicious, what's inauspicious in activities, and even drop out of activities altogether, so just withdraw and become a hermit, yeah? And become, basically in real world terms, become unproductive, completely unproductive, yeah? So less useful than a hamburger, because at least that can be eaten by somebody. So that's a pretty grey state to be in, but I basically would call it laziness, or getting a mental block or a mental wall at the thought of having to do something, or that something seems too daunting and it makes you feel tired before you've even started. That is the hindrance of sloth and torpor, yeah? third hindrance. And with that, I'm going to take a rest with this part 1 and continue with the final 2 hindrances in part 2 of this podcast. And those final 2 hindrances will be, or are, and will be explained as restlessness and worry, also known in Pali as uddhacca kukucca, which is to do with being incapable to calm your own mind and focus yourself on whatever it is you're trying to do, wandering, inability to control your own mind, and restlessness just keeping you all over the place. Which, as we can see in the present day, everybody is being diagnosed with ADHD, so it's becoming a social disease. The 4th hindrance. And the 5th hindrance is doubt, vicikicca, which is means you're not completely convinced. You're lacking in your conviction or your belief or your faith or trust in your own abilities, not in God or anything like that, but in your own abilities. So those things combine together to remove your motivation and to hinder you, to hamper you. As lawyers like to say, please don't hamper my case when you try to tell them what to do. So in part 2, I will try to explain those 2 in detail, but those are basically what the final 2 hindrances are: restlessness and worry, and the inability to calm your own mind, and the 5th one being doubt, or what you would say suspicion, doubt, unsurety, lack of confidence, in modern language you might say, a lack of faith in your ability to be able to do it, so you don't even get up your ass and try. And I think maybe in part 2 I'll take all 5, just like I've listed all 5 here, and I will break them down. Or maybe I'll make 5 more podcasts. Might be better to deal with each hindrance and break each hindrance down into its causes, how to recognize it, its nature, what it is, and hopefully, not that I've got rid of mine, how to get rid of them. It's possible to teach people and yourself through listening to your own teachings, even formulating a teaching can help me, and it does. Can you teach something that you haven't mastered yet? Yes, you can, if you know how to explain it, because if you know the path, if you know the way to London, you can explain to somebody how to get to London, even if you've never been yourself. But if you know the way, you know the map, you know the roads, you know the turnings, because you've learned it, or you've seen it, you've incited it, then you can, yes, of course you can. You can point the way instead of leading it. And maybe those people get there before you even. So they lead the way for you after, because you pointed it out to them. But you didn't get there in time for them. They got there before you. That's possible too. So Ajahn Spencer with this podcast, first podcast on the 5 hindrances. And I'll see you in part 2 if you're interested in listening further. Signing off.